We're the Young Indie Chroniclers podcast, and we're producing a new feature-length documentary, George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age.
George Lucas was going to do this Lawrence of Arabia scale epic on a 16-millimeter budget.
You got a chance to have the same adventure making the show as what Indy was doing.
His stuff is really quite political.
You didn't think I was going to run, did you?
I learned that when George says he wants to ultimately change or fix something, that he was going to do it.
We built a Kickstarter campaign to support the film. Late pledges are available now at Kickstarter.com.
Hello there. Welcome to Force Ghost Conversations. This podcast is your home for cozy deep dives into all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent properties. This is your host, Anthony King, and each week I will be joined by fans, creators, and believers in the principles from the galaxy far, far away to discuss the thematical elements from our favorite Lucasfilm properties. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Hello there, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and as always, this is your place for cozy deep dive discussions into all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent properties. And I just want to start this off by apologizing as I'm a bit under the weather as I'm recording this here, so my voice may sound nasally. I may do, those type of things to hold back the snot that's currently accumulating in my head right now, and I may cough. I'll try to edit out those for good purposes there, but you never know sometimes. So, anywho, that is where my life is at right now. It's I'm sick at the time of release and recording, so yay. Anywho, we did get a wonderful conversation in with Silver from Star Wars Thrifting online, and this conversation is about a little known detail perhaps in the Star Wars galaxy, and the fact that the day of release here, March 22nd, is the 50th anniversary of principal photography starting on Star Wars A New Hope back in 1976. So it's a really momentous occasion, and we wanted to mark it here on the podcast. So we brought on Silver to chat about it. We have a great conversation talking about what was filmed that day, the problems already from the start, and just celebrating this momentous occasion, of course. Before we get into that, I did want to note that in the news, Cloud City Gossip, there was a new Maul trailer that dropped. We talk about it a little bit in the episode here. But we're definitely full steam ahead towards that April 6th release of Maul Shadow Lord, and it looks like those episodes are going to be released at midnight PST, so 3 a.m. on the East Coast here, and we'll of course be doing weekly coverage of all the new episodes that come out all the way up through May 4th when they are when it's the season finale. I'm hoping season finale, but you never know with streaming platforms these days. But our hopes is that, at least my hope is that will have multiple seasons and we're able to get a lot more Maul, all the Maul goodness as we continue moving on into this new streaming age. And then Mando and Grogu is at the end of the month of May too. So we got a lot of fun stuff coming up on the podcast, of course, as we head into summer. And folks, that is all that I had for the news this week. Thank you very much for your patience here. And on the other side of the short break, we'll be back with our conversation with Silver, aka Star Wars Thrifting, on 50 years of film and Star Wars. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations. This is a awesome anniversary episode here for you all. When I say anniversary, I mean we're talking maybe the biggest anniversary yet so far. And I feel like this is one that no one is talking about. And it took me to the other day just to be like, oh, that must be coming up here. So then I look online, and lo and behold, at the release of this recording date is the actual 50th anniversary of the start of principal photography for Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. And to celebrate that, we have a guest on the show, returning guest. You know her as Star Wars Thrifting, but we also know her as Silver. Silver, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations, and how are you doing?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for having me. I know we are just talking offline about, just how we're feeling and our weird, I don't know, the weather that we're dealing with. So, yeah, love it. Love being back. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Always love being back.
It is a pleasure to have you on. And I'm curious, you were saying you're going through a heat wave. Does that impact the thrifting at all? Does it
Oh,
mean that more stands are out because it's warmer outside, or less stands because it's a heat wave, or more stands likely to be out and about because it's colder? I'm just curious about the process.
I would not be able to tell you that because it's so hot. I don't want to go out. It's so hot.
I'll say it
I
impacts
rather,
your thrifting then.
yeah, it does. So I could not tell you how it looks out and about, but I'm not going out there anytime soon. That's for sure.
I don't blame you. Keep the
However,
pups
it's just
inside.
1 week, just 1 week. Supposedly, my husband told me this morning, he said, just this 1 week that we're having a heat wave, we'll go back to enjoying the winter, which is
There's an end in sight, but really with climate change looming over everybody, is it really over?
exactly right.
Climate change is real, folks. Tell your senators and Congress people about that.
Yes.
I'll get off my
And your
soapbox here.
family members.
Yes, and be sure to debate your family members on the
On
on the
Thanksgiving,
truth. Yes,
Christmas, and like have a good time.
take
Let them
every
know.
opportunity you can to remind
Yes.
them that this is real. And when you have cold periods, it's because of the extreme heats that you feel.
Yes.
There's warming and cooling, and both are extremes because of that. So, anywho.
Exactly.
Silver, thank you for coming on here. This is also a week of trailers, and before we dive into this, I wanted to get your thoughts of we got a Dune trailer recently. We have a Maul Shadow Lord new trailer that dropped this week. What do you think about that Maul trailer? And excited for the series coming up here in just a few weeks.
I've been excited for this mall trailer. Been excited for the mall series in general. I was in Celebration Japan where we had like the little like teaser.
You got that little split second.
Amazing. The hype behind it. For me, I love Star Wars animation. I can like get on my soapbox and talk about how it's probably the best storytelling in Star Wars. Um being a being a prequel kid,
Mhm.
love Darth Maul.
Yeah,
Love Darth Maul. So to have more of Sam Witwer's Darth Maul and the gorgeous animation that Lucasfilm loves to feed us with, I'm excited for this series. Cannot wait. However,
okay.
part 3 gagged me yesterday. I'm so
In a good way.
in a good way, in a good way
Okay.
where I talk about I was talking to a coworker today and he asked me, he's like, "Did you see the June trailer?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." He's like, "I don't know. It's not like he's like, "I love the first one." I said, "Yeah, but the second one was amazing." And then him and I
Even
had a
better,
whole
you might say.
discussion. And he's like, "I don't know, like trilogies." I was like, "Hello, Empire Strikes Back, Doom Part 2." Like for me, Doom Part 2 was probably one of the best films I saw when it came out in theaters. I
Mhm.
saw it 8 times in theaters.
Nice.
Um you know, I I seeing the trailer yesterday was like really exciting. So, and it just reminded me the fact that I have to wait until December
Mhm.
to sit in the theater and watch it. But yeah, just so exciting. Yeah, I just am looking forward to it for sure.
Absolutely. And we're getting into that season now of, all right, Maul Shadow Lord is in like 2 weeks. Then we get like 5 weeks of that. And then like a brief 2 weeks in there. And then Mandalorian and Grogu. And we're in the summer season. And then before we know it, it'll be, I think they're calling it Doomsday now because both
Doomsday.
Star Wars, not Star Wars, but Dune Part 3 and Avengers Doomsday are coming out on the same day. So much like a Barbenheimer of a few years back, it's going to be a madhouse at the cinema that holiday season coming up pretty soon here.
No questions asked. It's Dune. Sorry, Doomsday. You have a lot of convincing to tell me to show up, but obviously I will. But Dune, Dune,
but
Dune,
but
Dune.
not 8
My
times.
gosh. Not 8 times.
Are you going to maybe see it 9 times to beat it out?
I might do the 9 or maybe 10. Double digits.
I mean, it's helpful that's over the Christmas holiday break too, so you might have some free time. You need to get away from family and friends and whatnot, and go sit in a
Yeah,
like a
when
theater
the
for
family's talking about global warming, I might have
That's
to
right.
like exit and go see Dune for the 10th time.
It might be the move,
It
to
might be the move.
take them too, right? To see a film about the dangers of following a cult of personality like leader, if
Yep.
they do subscribe to a particular political leaning. It might be the
Yeah.
story that they need to hear, or it might go over their heads.
They might be exhausted by listening to me. Maybe Timothy Chalamet and Zendaya can convince them.
Or 3
So,
hours in a dark theater, they'll just fall asleep. And
yeah. And then I can tell them what's up again about global warming.
that's when you throw popcorn at them and go, "Wake up! Global
Wake
warming's
up.
real."
Yeah, real.
Well, thank you again for hopping on here to chat about this major anniversary here. And I want to start with when I reached out about coming on to talk about this, did you know that this anniversary was coming up? And what was the first thoughts that kind of went through your heads when I said, "Hey, it's 50th anniversary of like the actual start of filming"? Like, what do you think about that?
Well, for me, I know it's the 50th anniversary coming soon. I'm a docent at Rancho Obi-Wan.
Awesome.
So we're planning some, can't mention that what we're doing, but planning some a really cool thing for the to
Mm,
celebrate 50th anniversary of Star Wars. So I know the 50th is looming over us. However, um about shooting about photography, like
hmm
it just kind of flew over my mind. So I was excited that you asked to for us to kind of like hang out and talk about that.
Yeah, and it's like it's crazy to think like, okay, so like you would have to start filming to because we both know that they're re-releasing the film next February
Hmm.
in theaters.
Hmm.
Starfighter is coming out at the same no, we're in May or thereabouts when the 50th is actually hitting, and Celebration will be in April, and they're going to really bring down the
Do it
house
big.
well, yeah, 50th anniversary, right? It'll be in LA proper, right?
Hmm.
Instead of downtown in Anaheim. So they're going all out next year, but this is really where it all starts. Like everything
Hmm.
from Sunday, March 22nd on is officially 50th anniversary of everything, right? Because then you're soon going to get George's freak out in London that he's going to have in a
Yeah.
few weeks. You're going to have George's freak out when he goes back to LA to talk to ILM about how things are going. You're going to have the 50th anniversary of his hospital visit after seeing ILM. You're going to have the 50th anniversary of pulling it all together. The great trailer, right? That somewhere in space this is happening. And then eventually it'll
50
lead up to that
years of
May.
George Lucas freaking out.
50 years of George Lucas freaking out. Yes, and that's
And what do we how amazing his journey we got here to this point. So
it's amazing that he's still
appreciate it.
kicking with
Still
all the
kicking.
things that
Opened up in a
happened.
museum.
That's right. Can't
Good for
forget that.
him.
Yep, we're gonna
Yeah.
start soon in coming in September, right?
Hmm.
The official opening launch of the museum is going to house the archives for
Hmm.
Lucasfilm, and going to have presumably a lot of the things that were a part of the original production, at least
Hmm.
in the museum's basement, probably. Maybe
Yeah,
not
for
on
sure.
display fully, because I know George probably will
Yeah.
be like, we can only have so much Star Wars out at a time. There has to be my
Hmm.
Norman Rockwell paintings out.
Yeah.
But this is the first day of principal photography. So folks at home, that means that this is the first day that cameras are rolling. So this is where the first actual footage of Star Wars is actually captured. And there's a wonderful website that we'll have a link in the episode description for, which actually lists out day to day everything that has happened for the production timeline of Star Wars itself. And it's amazing that this site actually exists because it's like a treasure trove of information. Like apparently there was a chartered Lockheed C-130 plane to deliver set pieces and equipment in the middle of the desert. There's a couple days prior to the actual start of photography. Alec Guinness is complaining about his character, and then George has to meet him for lunch and assuage all of his worries and concerns. I'm like, wow, George is just really haranguing this thing together, and this guy that's kind of out of his element is making it work. But already on day one there was already there was problems in the famed Star Wars production. So folks, the first actual image recorded in Tunisia on March 22nd of 1976 was actually the Jawas selling the droids beneath the sand crawler. So that whole sequence is the start of Star Wars there, if you're ever watching A New Hope again. Silver, did you know that that was like the first thing that they ever shot for Star Wars amidst all of like the behind the scenes stuff that you've been collecting over the years?
Absolutely not. And I love that. I love that the fact that Jawas were
Start everything.
start they're important. We tend to forget. We think they're cute, we think they're silly, but the fact that that was like the first day really brings like a warm heart, a warm feeling into my heart, you know?
I agree.
Amazing.
They start at 6:30 a.m. and it took 2 hours to fit Anthony Daniels into his C-3PO costume, and they had numerous malfunctions with the remote controlled R2D2 and R5D4 units. And so they ultimately only got 2 shots in that day. The aforementioned sandcrawler sequence, and then a second shot, which was at the end of the day, that featured Luke running out of the Lars homestead to search
Mhm.
for the missing R2. Did you know that that was the second scene shot ever for Star Wars? Because it's kind of out of sequence. It wouldn't make sense that that was the 2 things that they do in one day.
It wouldn't make sense, but that's what, like, that's what sets his whole journey off, which is so incredible, right? That's just the tone, I think. I would imagine that people who are here filming the scene, they're just like, what are we doing? There's
Hmm.
weird little aliens. We're here. It's hot. But for that to happen, I would imagine it would be like something that's like maybe everybody on set was like, okay, we're kind of getting somewhere, right?
Do you think they were getting some like? Do you think that was their thoughts, or do you think they're just like, I'm just collecting a paycheck, like I'm here,
I'm
like
just
I
like
I
collecting
don't care if
paychecks.
this goes well or
I
not.
think every time I see documentaries, and especially I love Light and Magic. That's my favorite documentary of all time. But everybody's collecting a paycheck. They're just like, we're just gonna figure out what we're doing. But I love that. But it's so funny because for them to be in that position and then us 50 years later, those happen to be like big moments. It's insane.
That's the ultimate irony, right? Is that like them just starting? There's like it's another day at the office, right?
Yeah.
I got hired for this. I think maybe there's the famous guy in the pink shorts, the boom
Yeah.
mic guy. He's out there, and little did he know he'd become
Best
an
guy.
icon in the fandom. And now
Icon.
we're here talking 50 years later, like you
Yeah.
mentioned about this. Like they had no idea. Only George maybe was the only one that could see the vision for this thing in his head.
You don't think that I wish I can ever meet that guy in the pink shorts in the boom mic? Of
If we could
course.
find him, I think you have a wonderful chat with
Legend.
him. Yeah.
Legend.
Where's he?
Legend.
Is he going to be at Celebration next year?
I would hope so. Yeah, no, legend. It's incredible, for George Lucas to be taking a big risk, and they're filming overseas for some sci-fi movie that George has envisioned, and for a studio to like take a bet on him. And I cannot imagine how George Lucas would feel every day being like, what am I doing? Is this gonna work? Just being like in having imposter syndrome every time. But I mean, just incredible. Like for us, it's like
Yeah.
how amazing would that be to be like a fly on the wall and like watch every day. But again, these are people who are just working, and 50 years later, here we are just talking about how impactful their work was.
Well, it's so funny that, this is very famously a troubled production. And
Mhm.
almost from the start, there is a problem with this in the fact that Anthony Daniels can't even get into his costume right away, and the R2 units are struggling to be working. Like I
Yeah.
can already imagine in George's head, he's just like, everything is going wrong. My whole life is falling apart around me. This is where the anxiety really just starts to begin. That will eventually lead to his basically panic attack, heart attack that leads him to the hospital. in a couple of weeks.
Hmm. Well, you think about it, right? 50 years, obviously, like technology has improved
Hmm.
tremendously. Things are just easy. I can easily like connect to a Bluetooth or, just airdrop something and it's easy, right? But I can only imagine being at a desert where it's extremely hot and there's a lot of you know, cameras and wires. Everyone's just trying to like
Yeah.
figure
Yeah.
things out. Like, it could be frustrating. My husband, he loves retro gaming and
Hmm.
it's a pain to just put the red cord, yellow cord into an old TV and plug it in. It's like, my gosh, why is this so difficult? And that was only like 20 years ago. I can only imagine like 50 years of like just like the amount of just chaos and, insane difficulty that must have been having to like film a scene for a movie. Like, think about cameras and
Yeah.
all the people and the scheduling. It just must be nuts.
Well, you said the scheduling, and that's like top of the problem list right there, is because time is money on a film set.
Hmm.
You only have so many days, or you have. I guess you technically have an unlimited amount of time. It just depends what your budget is, and
Yeah.
this is a film that will famously go over budget because of how much time it takes to get on on
Hmm.
schedule for everything. So already from the start, it's having problems, and then apparently they were also supposed to film the twin sunset image where Luke goes out and he's looking out across the horizon, but it had to be scrapped for a later date because it like starts to rain so heavily at the end of the first day, and then for a couple days it has this rare winter rain in Tunisia that they could have never predicted, that causes them to have multiple setbacks on the filming schedule from the start. I'm just like, no, nothing is going right for this. So it is truly a miracle that we're able to get Star Wars in 1977 in May as we actually see it then. And I know there's like, this is just one aspect of it, because you could say, okay, the ILM pulling things together at the last minute is also a miracle in its own right. And then there's also the London side of things where they're in the studio and the union workers are like, we're done at 5, see ya.
Yeah.
George is like, no,
Yeah.
please work overtime, we need to get
Yes,
done.
please. Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think that's like the exciting part about filmmaking, right?
Hmm.
You can't predict how things are going to be. When you think about like I think about films and people who are just filming a shot based on, the sky and how it's going to be. But when you have like for me right now, I'm in California, I'm
Hmm.
dealing with a heat wave in the middle of winter. I didn't
Yeah.
expect that. But to have an entire like film crew having to adjust to that,
Hmm.
that's just insanely wild, and I can only imagine the stress that everybody has to go through with that.
Well, to me, it's no wonder why George is so adamant and proponent of blue and green screen later on, because he's like, I can
Yeah,
control the
yeah,
sets. I don't have to care
yeah,
about
yeah,
weather.
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
are
yeah,
inside. We can take as many takes as we need
yeah,
to. The
yeah.
actors be damned. They can figure out what's around them and pretend that there's something on
Uh-huh.
the screen in front of them. Or even to today, where we have things like the volume now, right? It
Yeah.
gives them so much more freedom to experiment with different lighting and styles to make films, the filmmaking process, cheaper. But there's an avenue by which we're sitting here and we're talking about this because Star Wars is ultimately a successful property, and we're like, wow, it's able to be awesome in spite of the troubled production that it has. But there's also a world where this film is not as good, and this is kind of a cult classic in a way, in the fact of how bad it is, and we just laugh about the behind the scenes, kind of like the Room. Like there's like almost a movie to be made about like the disaster artist from the Star Wars angle, and this is like the origin of it is like right here is the droids don't work on day one.
I would love an entire movie based on the photography filming 50 years ago of the insanely popular movie that is Star Wars. Like the
Hmm.
drama, like it would be so amazing to watch. I love that he bring up the room. That's so hilarious to me. Like, who are we casting as George Lucas at this point?
Ooh, I mean, I don't know why, but first thing pops in my head is Sebastian Stan,
Love
and
it, love it,
I'm
love it.
like, I think he could do
Appreciate
it,
that.
and I think
I think he
put a
can.
beard on him, get that hair on him. I think he could resemble George. I don't know why, it
Yeah,
just fits.
yeah, it just does fit for sure.
Now, the real quick, I think the question is who could pull off the Gary Kurtz kind of like Amish style beard, that neck beard that he has that he's rocking during the days of the
Josh
original
Brolin.
trilogy. Josh Brolin, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And then who are the actors playing the character? Like who's Alec Guinness struggling in the
Oh
desert?
my goodness.
Christoph Waltz, is he pulling out the Guinness?
I would love Crystal Baltz being such a diva. Like,
Yep.
I way beyond this thing, but I guess I'm gonna show up, you know. But I love that. That's a good one for sure.
That would be awesome. And hopefully that's like instead of like remaking films, they kind of do that approach of we'll show like the story of how things are made, right? Because I think there was a successful um, Paramount Plus series a few years ago called The Offer about the making of The Godfather.
Godfather. Loved it.
And then they're currently in production of a movie that's about the making of Rocky, which I don't know if that has a troubled set or not, but maybe there is enough of a troubled set or interesting story in order to make it worth it being a movie. Another one I could think would be really interesting would be Jaws, just because that shark never worked. But
Love that.
they actually have the Broadway-esque play that's touring around the country. The Shark is Broken, that covers kind of that tale. So no, there's a an interesting and fruitful avenue by which someone could take up this mantle. So Lucasfilm, if you're listening, you probably own the rights to telling this story. I mean, you have the
Give us the
material, you have the
details.
people.
Give
Yeah,
us the details. Yeah.
drop the
There's
dirty news, right? We know the
Lucasfilm Archives. I've seen a piece of it. You can tell us. Show us. Show us. Give us the dirty details of what happened. What really happened.
That's right. Not a documentary. Come on, give us the
No.
full like
Give us the full
dramatization of it.
drama. Yes.
It could be an awards darling, right?
Would love them.
Get John Williams to meta do the score of that would be really fascinating and fun way to keep the Star Wars story going without actually creating another entry in the universe. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. The story always in motion, the future is. And as we're starting to
Always in
get into
motion.
these 50 years of storytelling between Star Wars and everything beyond, like it's going to be a fruitful era for new stories and the fun that comes with that. So, Silver, any other thoughts that you have about just learning about the first day of production and how excited are you to celebrate 50 years of Star Wars?
I'm very excited. Can't believe that it's been 50 years. The fact that we are lucky enough to be here sitting on this podcast celebrating that, as fans, we all have our own personal stories on why we love this thing,
Mm-hmm.
but there's always a beginning, right?
Yes.
On, how it came to fruition of this larger than life story that we get to enjoy and still talk about later. Um, and not only that, there's just a future. We could still
Mm-hmm.
look forward to more stories that George Lucas decided to get inspired and write it.
Yeah.
And there was a studio that decided to bet on him and let him go at it. So it's incredible. I love hearing these little stories of just it's almost like a humbling experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think it. I when I think about Star Wars, I think it being like again larger than life, but it was more like a short, like a almost like an indie film. You
At
know?
that time, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's still people showing up to work. As much as we mythologize every aspect of it, it's
Mhm.
still a guy in pink shorts showing up and doing a boom
Yeah.
mic.
But there was a young filmmaker who happened to just really just be passionate about something, and for his, for us to be here 50 years later still talking about this thing is actually incredible.
Hmm.
And it just shows like how wonderful original storytelling can be, how someone's imagination can just like spark a lot of things 50 years later is
Yeah.
actually admirable and incredible. And of course, there's little bumps in the road when you have something as weird as something that, no one bet on this movie. I work at um, Rancho Obi-Wan. There's a lot of history. We talk about
Hmm.
that. And, the beginning of our tour, we're talking about like, we show everybody the posters, how
Hmm.
this was a movie that was coming to theaters and nobody knew what it was about, um, and how it just exploded after. And you think about social media now and like like people like word of mouth, but like 50 years ago for a movie to just explode and just hit the zeitgeist of pop culture is actually really incredible. And of course there's going to be like bumps of the road. George Lucas has said that he just can't stand this first movie because he can see like the tape holding it together because he's a
Yep.
perfectionist. And he just of course um but it's just incredible. Like I admire it so much, and I cannot believe that we're still here talking about it 50 years later.
It's a miracle, and from very humble origins, we're here. This is the beginning, this is the start of it, and then everything that happens afterwards is the true miracle of getting Star Wars onto screen.
Hmm.
The brilliant editors, Marsha Lucas and team, that put it all together, that makes it the film that we see, that's faster, more intense, and then lightning strikes again with Empire a few years later, right? It's still prove that there's still an audience for this even after the massive success. Can we do it again? And then they do it again with Return of the Jedi, and ride off into the fun sunset until we get the prequel trilogy
Hmm.
19 years after that point. So it's a blast, and it's a journey, and I'm glad that it's like officially 50th anniversary season. Now, my last question for you, Silver. Our mutual friends over at Sky Talkers a couple months ago actually went to the sites in Tunisia to
Love it.
explore and to see it in person. Is that on your bucket list too? Are you planning at some point in your life to get out over to Tunisia and to walk the Lars homestead and to see where the sandcrawler was?
It is. It really is. Sky Talkers, really good friends of mine. But Charlotte messaged me saying, "Hey, like, we're doing this trip. Um, me and Caitlin really want to like have this like vintage vibe of like, old shirts. Do you have
Mm.
anything maybe like, you can help me out with? Like, how can I find this?" I said, "Well, guess what? You're actually traveling there and fulfilling a dream of mine. So I'm gonna give you this shirt." So I gave her a vintage liquid blue t-shirt for her to go and have her journey over there. Their journey, incredible. Um, yeah, of course, I would love to. At Rancho Obi-Wan, we do have a chicken coop door in our museum that is from Tunisia,
Okay.
sitting in our museum. And every time that's like a highlight of our tour that we say, "Hey, this is an actual chicken coop door that was filmed in Tunisia for the first Star Wars movie." It was a chicken coop door, which, by the way, Rancho Obi-Wan used to be an old chicken coop, and we
Hmm.
transformed it into a museum. So it's like a kind of like a connectivity of it. But it's so incredible to remind the people who are visiting our museum that like, hey, we're making a movie. We're gonna use a chicken coop door to look like we're just in space in a
Gotta
galaxy
use what
far,
we gotta
far
use it
away.
for. Yep.
Um, so yeah, it's just like I would love to visit something like Tunisia to be like, wow, like we they traveled so far away to film this movie. I would love to visit something like that. I think it's incredible. And yeah, I mean, just a dream like it would be a dream to eventually get there for sure.
Agreed. Agreed. It's definitely on one of my bucket list items too, to get
Hmm.
out there, because I think, it's fun to get these behind the scenes stories and details and to watch the videos and documentaries and all that stuff and actually the movie itself too. But to actually, like, walk it, to understand, like, how far it took them in the desert, in the sand, getting sand in your boots, right, as you're walking all day long and experiencing the heat, like, it just gives you a different level of appreciation that only being there can offer.
Hmm.
So it's important to go visit these sites, even as trivial as, seeing a filming location might be, but to us, where it's super important and impactful to our lives, like, this is like a pilgrimage of sorts, and that's an important place to go to for us to experience that for ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, again, a dream come true. I would love to like eventually get there, if I could, if I can. Um, but yeah, I mean, I can only imagine, just being willing to get there and appreciate, just how far, this little indie film
Mhm.
came a long way. And you're right, getting the sand in our boots, must be a journey to get there. I would imagine the weather is not what I'm used to.
Yes, a
But
heat
yeah, I
wave right
would.
now, that's probably
Oh,
very similar.
very similar for sure. But yeah, just to appreciate, the risk of
Mhm.
this this movie, um the risk it took for people who, again, a big big entire big community of people coming together who are working and love movies to make this film 50 years ago, and to see it like, come to fruition 50 years later, and how big, again, it's just like impacted pop, not only pop culture, but
Mhm.
fans all over the world. And you can go anywhere and people knew what Star Wars is. It's just really, really powerful.
That's right. Yeah, March 22nd of 1976, those people had no idea that 50 years later, people will be actually going to these sites and drinking blue milk and, you know, actually choosing to go there on their own and not just, like, stumbling upon it.
You think that Pink Shorts boom mic legend had any idea? Well, probably he was just like roasting, holding this mic, thinking like, "Wow, I hating my life right now because it's exhausting and hot. It's This is a job." But 50 years later, he was able to record some incredible, memorable dialogue and scenes, and it just like sticks with us all these years later. Like it's forever. Movies are forever. It's incredible.
Probably no idea, and my only hope for this world is that those pink shorts are proudly on display at the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art.
I would imagine that if those pink shorts are displayed at that Lucas, the George Lucas Museum, it would be a sight to behold for sure.
Yes, those pink shorts right beside the, Liam Neeson, like, rainbow hat that he wore.
Rainbow hat with the umbrella,
The umbrella
yes,
hat, yes.
all of that, yeah. And guess
Showcasing
what?
the
And you know what? That's the thing about movies. Like, the Phantom Menace had their own issues.
it sure did, absolutely, whole like, what, big storm, massive storm? I
A
don't was it a
big
sandstorm?
storm, big storm, completely. Like
Destroyed the
Liam
entire set, basically?
Qui-Gon's Jinn's wig was like missing. I couldn't find it. It was wild. Yeah, it was incredible. It's just like that's just like the thing about movies. Like, as much as like we love these movies, like there's just, there's an everyday occurrence that can happen, whether it's has to do with weather, or like, a scene's not fitting, or the cameras aren't working, or the lighting's not working. Like, it's an everyday like
Mhm.
adjusting. And just incredible that we can it's still going to resonate with us 50 years later. It's actually just remarkable.
And that was the final straw for George. He was like, I can't do another outdoor sand sequence. We're going inside. We're going digital. Blue screen it is, guys. Attack of Clones, the first fully digital film.
Yeah, I can't imagine them like traveling to film the gymnasium, arena scene. They're just like, now we're doing this inside. Can't have any more problems.
That's right. Jordan's like, we're moving the needle forward on the magic of cinema, and we're saving my anxiety at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. I cannot handle another hospital visit.
Nope, not at this age.
Yep.
I've got kids to watch out for now. I
Yeah.
just can't be willy-nilly going to a hospital.
Yep, for sure.
Well, Silver, it's been a blast celebrating 50 years of the start of principal photography of Star Wars with you. Where can the folks find you if they want to, tag along for your thrifting adventures when it's not blazing hot outside? Where can they find you online in the social channels?
Just at Star Wars Thrifting. I'm on Instagram. I guess it's called X/Twitter.
I guess
I don't
so.
know what's called these days. But I'm there. Love Star Wars, love talking about it. I'm working at Rancho Obi-Wan,
Hmm.
which is a museum that houses the biggest Star Wars memorabilia. So there's a lot of history there. And look forward or just watch out because 50 years is coming up. We have a lot to share. So some exciting stuff's going on over there. So follow us there.
And recently announced the Saga Museum is coming down the pipeline too, correct?
It is. It is. It's a big one. We're excited. A lot of moving parts. Again, we're celebrating 50 years of Star Wars, but 50 years from now, there's a younger generation who's going to
Hmm.
appreciate these movies, and we would love to make sure we preserve that history
Yeah.
of not only these amazing films, but also like, the actual physical um physical appreciation of what these movies mean to us, and that's through memorabilia and
Yeah.
collectibles, a lot of history, a lot of fan made stuff,
Hmm.
for sure. But yeah, Saga Museum.
And the occasional Pepsi machine.
That thing's in my garage. That's a crazy thing. Steve Sansweet, the head of Rancho Obi-Wan, he's worked at Lucasfilm um from late 80s to early 2000s. Big collector, big fan, but man, he always gives me a hard time the fact that I found that machine before him. But yeah,
You have a piece of the collection that even Rancho Obi-Wan does not possess.
it does not possess. But however, if I were to ever to give it up, it's gonna go over there to the Saga Museum for sure.
A loan in the museum world, as we call it, when you're like, I'll give it to you for a little bit and then I'll take it back.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
You can have fun with it, put it on display, but eventually I do need it to serve my
It's a
Pepsi.
it's a flex for me for him to like, be jealous of something that I have.
That's
Because
right.
every time I go to work at the museum, I'm just like, man, I'm jealous of everything. But for him to be like, wow, you really got something that I want, it's a flex for me. It's
It-
a
It's a
it's a
testament
nice
to
little
to your drive and desire to have such a thing. Because dn't you have to rent a couple a couple heavy
I
machinery
don't think
tools
I'm
to
ever
get
gonna
it?
move from my house. I think that I was telling my husband, I said, I don't think we can move because it was a struggle to get it from there to our garage. There's no way we can move. It's like it was chaos. So I was like, I guess we're just gonna have to like live here and retire here because there's no way I'm gonna move that thing again.
We're locked in. Where we go, it goes, and it's staying
Yeah,
here.
right. It's staying here. We're not going anywhere.
Well, fantastic. And folks, please go give Silver a follow on all the social channels. It's fun to catch up on the weekends. Usually early in the mornings for you, but it's usually about 10 o'clock for me over here to see where you're going to the flea markets and thrift stores to catch up all the fun things that are Lucasfilm and Star Wars related out in the Bay Area. So, folks, give Silver a follow. You will not regret it. And of course, we'll be back next week with a brand new episode in the Star Wars galaxy. And until then, may the Force be with you. Take care.